go 820. The emphasis yesterday, we got through a lot of information, even though we didn't get through a lot of text. Try to understand why Korach behaved in the way that he did. Now we're going to see what happens, right? Okay, here, let's go. We're down at the bottom of 820. So what's happened is like this. Korach has fomented this rebellion, and now we've got what's going to be the end result over here. So let's have a look and see. So the emphasis, we started this yesterday, but we got stuck. So we'll go from the last verse over here. Vayishma Moshe v'yipol al panav. Moshe, right? If you remember 820. If you remember Moshe, he kind of says, listen, this is nothing to do with me. I'm not here because I want to be here. I'm here because God put me here. And if you don't want me, that's fine. I'm happy to let go. And then he says like this: Vayidaber al Korach v'al kol hadasoi lemor. Boiker, tomorrow morning. V'yoda Hashem es asher lo v'yetz hakodesh hakriv elav v'yetz asher yivcha bo yakriv elav. This is the most unbelievable statement from Moshe Rabbeinu over here. You hear what Moshe is saying? Moshe is saying, I don't know. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe you're not right. It's not for me to say. Let's leave it up to God. You ever heard of anything like this? Most incredible thing. Instead of Moshe Rabbeinu turning around to them and saying, listen, you people are nuts. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu put me here, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to be here, and you all know it. And look at everything that I managed to do. And I brought you out of Egypt, and I brought you, right? No, what does he do? He just says, whatever God decides, that's fine by me.
That's reinforcing it much stronger. He says,
oh, very good, right? It's interesting, right? It's a little bit of reverse psychology, I guess, right? Where he's turning around and he's saying like this, that you should do, we're going to wait tomorrow, we're going to wait, and we're going to see what God wants. We'll see what God wants. In effect, what he's really doing is he's reinforcing the idea that it's God that sent him. Only somebody, it's God that sent him. No. Only somebody who is comfortable within who he is would be able to do what Moshe just did. You understand, right? If we were involved, if this was us, right? What would we be doing right now? This would be a little bit of damage control. I've got to hold on to what I've got. I can't let go of this position of responsibility and leadership. So I don't know. We'll come to some kind of a compromise over here. So maybe Korach can become the Kohen Gadol and Aaron will become the Kohen Gadol emeritus. Whatever it is, I'll do whatever I can in order to hold on to my position. Moshe doesn't do that. He says whatever God decides, it's fine. Really, it's fine. So let's have a look and see. Zois asu. Listen to what he tells them. That you should all take 822. You should all take pans, right? The great big frying pans that were going to be used to offer up the offering over here. Usnu vehen eish vasimu alem ketores lifnei Hashem machar vayaish asher yivchar Hashem hu hakadosh. What does he tell them? You're going to take ketores. What is ketores? Ketores is the spices, incense. Right, made up of 11 different spices that were chopped up very, very finely. And they were offered up. Who offered up the ketores?
people.
Under normal circumstances, Aaron, right? The Kohen Gadol. You should know that what Moshe is suggesting over here is something very, very radical. Right, what's he saying? Only one person can offer up the ketores. That's all. Only one person can offer up the incense. Which means that you have to know that if you're going to offer up the incense and it's not you, you're not going to survive. You need to know that. That's what he's telling them. How would they know that? Because that's exactly what happened to Nadav and Avihu, which is Aaron's two sons. They came and they offered up ketores when they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have offered up the incense, and they did it. And what happened to them? They died. So Moshe is being very straight with all of them. He's saying like this, listen, everybody understands, there's 250 plus people milling around over there, right? Everybody understands that only one of them can be the Kohen Gadol, and only one of them is going to be allowed to bring the incense. So he's telling you have to know that what you're doing right now, it's pretty dangerous. I'm just warning you, that's all.
Happening? They're all trying to make an offering.
They're all, next morning, they've all got to come with the incense in their frying pans and the fire and offer it up. That's pretty dangerous, right? Because if it's not you, if you're not the one that God's chosen, then you're going to die. Simple as that.
And when does it usually happen? When Aaron lights it up? When he has to do what?
When he goes to the Avodah in the morning.
So if they knew Aaron's son's died, why are they still persisting in trying?
Oh, we're going to get there. That's a great question. Hold on to it. It's a very important question, actually. Just before we get there, there's something very beautiful. Yeah.
What was the question?
if they knew that, so why did they do it? We're back to human nature again. Yeah. There's something else. So before we get there, something very, very fundamental about the Ketoret. Something very beautiful. The Ketoret, which is the incense, was comprised of 11 different spices, and each one was chopped up very finely, and it was all mixed together, and you couldn't identify which spice was which anymore because it was just one big sort of powdery substance, and then it was set on fire, and it gave off a beautiful smell. One of the things, the Arizal says like this, one of the things that was contained inside of the Ketoret was something called chelbana. Chelbana, which I think is myrrh, M-Y-R-H-H, go figure, right? How do you pronounce that? Myrrh. However you pronounce it, yeah? Smell something, chelbana smelled disgusting. Terrible. And yet when it was mixed together with all the other spices, it gave off the most incredible smell. So the Arizal says that the Ketoret, why is Moshe asking them to come and do this particular avodah? Why this of all things? Because the Ketoret represents the Jewish people. Inside of the Jewish people, it's comprised of everybody. All different kinds of people, different kinds of smells. We've got even the Chelbana, which are the Rashoim inside of the Jewish people, the wicked people inside of the Jew, they're all included. And when you mix them all together and they become unidentifiable, it becomes a reich nichoach l'Hashem, it becomes a beautiful smell to God. Which means it's the most beautiful idea. When the Jewish people come together, so of course they're always going to be wicked people, right? They're always going to be righteous people, and there's always going to be everybody in between as well. When the Jewish people come together, that's what God's looking for, what's called achdus, that sense of unity. That gives off a reich nichoach l'Hashem. That's a beautiful smell that's going to come to God. That's why Moshe's coming along. He's giving them a little message over here. What's the message? The message is, in order for us to remain united, there can only be one Kohen Gadol. You hear the idea? It's a subtle message, like a subliminal message that's been given over here.
But the Korach wanted to be a Kohen Gadol.
So what was Korach's idea originally? That he was going to get the Kohen Gadol was going to be annulled, and then they were going to realize that they needed a Kohen Gadol, and they would come to him and they would ask him to take it over. He knows that he can't really go head-to-head against Moshe. He knows that. But he can go head-to-head against Aaron. So he'll be happy with that, right? So that's why Moshe says, it's a very beautiful thing he's doing over here. You think that you are, the only way that we're going to find out who's really the Kohen Gadol, how are we going to find it out?
Do what Aaron does.
Do what Aaron does, and whoever's one is accepted, he's the one who's going. But you have to know, because there can only be one Kohen Gadol. No, this is Moshe's idea. We're going to see. Korach, he's got other ideas. Yeah.
So why would Aaron agree to do this?
Because Aaron has been chosen by God. Aaron wasn't chosen by Moshe.
He's not worried about it. He
No.
knows.
Yeah.
I thought Moshe was the Kohen Gadol.
No, Aaron, his brother, is the Kohen Gadol. He's the high priest. Moshe is the leader of the Jewish people, and Aaron is the high priest. And then Moshe says at the end of verse number 7, he says 4 very, very significant words over here that are going to have reverberations much later on. He says, Rav lachem b'nei Levi. He turns around to b'nei Levi, to the Shevet Levi, to the tribe of Levi, and he says to them, Rav lachem, it's enough. What you've got is enough. Don't get involved in what's going on over here. Right, why was he concerned they would get involved? Because Korach came from Levi. Korach's a very, very charismatic, very dynamic personality, and Korach has the ability to be able to, to stir things up and get Shevet Levi involved as well. So Moshe Rabbeinu turns around and he says to him, Rav lachem Shevet Levi, you've got enough. You were elevated to that position, right? Be happy with what you've got. 40 years later, when Moshe Rabbeinu wants to go into the land of Israel, and he petitions God over and over and over again, he davens to God over and over again, and finally God says to him, Rav lach. It's enough, you've got enough. You had enough. Says the Medrash, the most incredible thing, that because Moshe Rabbeinu told Shevet Levi, Rav lachem, you've got enough, so God told him, Rav lach, you've got enough. I don't know, what's the connection? Over here, Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to get Shevet Levi to calm down a little bit and not get involved. Sounds perfectly okay, no? And yet over there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's telling him the same thing. It's almost as if he's it's like, again, there's a midah keneged midah over here. There's a measure for measure. So explains Rosh Shlomo Kluger the most unbelievable idea. He says, when somebody has spiritual aspirations, never tell them that it's enough, even if their aspirations are wrong. You hear, Korach was wrong, right? Korach wanted to be the Kohen Gadol. That's really what his aspirations were, for all the wrong reasons, yeah? But when somebody's got spiritual aspirations, don't tell them Rav Lachem. Tell them, wow, that's what a fantastic idea, what a fantastic desire, what a fantastic aspiration. But you know what? I don't think this is really what you need to be doing right now. Because spiritual aspirations are things which spiritual aspirations shouldn't be negated, they should be channeled. So it could be that somebody's got a spiritual aspiration to do something which is pretty ridiculous, right? There was once somebody in the yeshiva who wanted to do a very, very stringent fast, like over a period of time. It was pretty dangerous.
Why did they want to do it?
Something to do with trying to make amends for the past. Okay? I don't want to go into the details. So I was trying to talk him out of it, not getting anywhere. But he went to speak to Rav Breitowitz, and Rav Breitowitz listened to him and told him told him that the idea in theory is a very, very important idea, and it's a very, it's an idea of tremendous weight, but that he feels that that's not really the way to go about it, and that was the way in to get the person to listen. And I realized afterwards, what was the chat? Why was it so difficult for him? I was telling him not to do it because I thought it was he was going to, there was a chance that maybe it would go too far and he could damage himself. Why didn't he want to listen to that? Because it was a spiritual aspiration. That's what it was. He was trying to achieve something. He's trying to achieve it in the wrong way, right? But he's trying to achieve something. And it's as if I said to him like, Rav Lecha, don't do it that way. And what Rav Breitowitz did was much smarter. He says, no, he says, it's an idea, and it's something which does exist within inside of the writings of the rabbis. There is such a concept. But I'm not convinced that this is the way to go about doing it. Here, verse number 8. Vayomer Moshe Korach Shimu na b'nei Levi. Hama'at mikem ki hiv... Yeah, sure.
Why does he have to... Vayomer Moshe Korach Shimu b'nei Levi.
Shimu na b'nei Levi.
Why does he have to...
Because Korach is part of Levi, which means that he realizes... so what's the chat? He realizes that he can't speak directly to Korach right now, because Korach, Korach won't listen to him.
No, but it says Vayomer Moshe el Korach.
Yeah, so what's the chat? How's he speaking to him? Through the message that he's giving over to the tribe of Levi. Right? Korach is part of the tribe of Levi. So Vayomer Moshe Korach, because Moshe can't say to Korach, this is not a good idea. Why not? Because what will Korach say? Well, of course you're going to say it's not a good idea. Right? You gave your brother the kahuna, you gave him the high priesthood, right? So of course you're going to say it's not a good idea that it come to me instead. So he can't speak to him right now. We've all always had those moments where you're trying to talk to somebody and they're not rational. It's as simple as that. Afterwards, they're sorry they didn't listen to you, but right now, forget it. Shimu na b'nei Levi, hama'at mikem ki yivdil Elokei Yisrael eschem me'adas Yisrael la'akriv eschem elav. Be happy with the fact that God has made you the spiritual role models. La'avoidis mishkan Hashem v'la'amoid lifnei ha'ida l'shol som. And you're going to serve, you're going to worship, you're going to take care of the avodah of the worship inside of the tabernacle, and you're going to serve the Jewish people. Ve'akrei v'yisachov yes kol achecha b'nei Levi yitoch. Gam kuna. And don't do this, right? Don't ask for the kahuna as well. It's enough what you've been given. Lachein ata v'chol hadatzcha noyadim al Hashem v'aron mahu ki salinu alav vayishlach Moshe. Okay, so here that's what he's saying, that you have to understand that God put Aaron into place, and that's Aaron's position. And it's not right for you to want what Aaron has got because you've been given something else. There's an inyan over here. There's an inyan of knowing your place. If you know who you are, right, and you know what's required of you, then it's very difficult to be jealous of other people. I read not very long ago a very interesting thing. I never really thought about it like that. But you know that when they sent people up onto the moon, so when Armstrong went out, at the beginning there was only him, and the other person had to stay the other ones had to stay in the spaceship, right? And then afterwards they swapped around, right? And so somebody asked, Rav Pinkus, he says like this, he says, how come the person who stayed behind in the spaceship, how come he wasn't jealous of Neil Armstrong that went down onto the moon? It's a good question, no? So he said the answer is very simple, because they understood that if one of them's on the moon, then this one's got to be in the spaceship. And if that's the way, that each one knows what their position is, each one knows what their place is. And if Armstrong was chosen to be the first one to go walk around on the moon, that means that this other fellow, he's got to stay where he is. What was his name? Buzz Armstrong, I think, no? Buzz something, no? Can't remember. Whatever. But it's an interesting idea, right? Which means like this, he's telling them, if Shevet Levi are comfortable with who they are, if they understand that they're there because God put them in that position and that's where they need to be, then it's pretty difficult to be jealous of Aaron, no? Because Aaron's been given one position of responsibility and they've been given a different position of responsibility. And to suggest that one of them can do what Aaron's doing and Aaron can do what that one's doing, that's not correct, because if that was correct, God would have done it that way to begin with, no?
If they're not comfortable with what they've been given, then they need to do what? Abdicate, get replaced? What?
I think what they really need to do is that they need to work on themselves to recognize that this is what God wants from them.
They didn't.
You should know jealousy. Jealousy is something which eats away inside of a person, and there's no rational logic behind being jealous of somebody. There really isn't.
That's with children. It's almost
Yeah,
impossible.
for sure. It's interesting, isn't it? It's something fascinating. You see, with little children, some children are more jealous and some children just don't care.
Right.
And it's interesting, and they can't, it could be siblings. They're coming from the same DNA material and the same environment and the same home and the same family. And some of the kids are jealous and some of the kids are not jealous, and it's the most incredible thing. And I'll tell you something else, which is, if you ask me, a little bit of a, maybe I don't want to use the word depressing, but it's a little bit depressing. Is that more often than not, little kids who are jealous grow up to be big kids that are jealous, and then they grow up to be adults that are jealous. And these little kids who are happy, they're not jealous. They're happy to give. They don't care. You can have what you've got, and they'll be happy that you've got it. They normally grow up to be, more able to deal with other people's successes than others. It doesn't mean that if you're born with that jealous streak inside of you that you can't overcome it. You gotta work on it. That's all. Something to work hard on. It's interesting. I don't know. How does one? I'll tell you more than that. It's something. What's fascinating is that you can be brought up in a home where the parents work very hard on this idea of jealousy. They're not jealous, and they never express any kind of jealousy, and yet the kid's got it, and the kid is going to have to work hard in order to try to overcome that. And sometimes they'll succeed, and sometimes they won't. And even when they succeed, even within that, sometimes they'll be more successful, and sometimes they'll be less successful. That's part of the growth process.
So now, Shevet Levi as a tribe are not necessarily jealous. All of them. They're being stirred up. Somehow.
Yeah, which means like this.
Something else
Yeah.
that doesn't have.
Which means what's Pshat? The Pshat is like this, that up until now they're happy with who they are. It's like you're walking down the street. You're perfectly content with the mobile phone that you've got. And you're walking down the street and you see this enormous billboard about, the latest whatever it is, and then your phone rings and all of a sudden you're not satisfied anymore. A moment ago you were satisfied and now you're not, because you saw on the billboard all of a sudden, no, that's what I need to have. I'm an idiot. I was satisfied with something that shouldn't have satisfied me, you understand? I need to have the, whatever it is, the iPhone 10 or whatever they're up to, right? In order to be happy. Up until now, Shevet Levi are perfectly content. What Moshe is trying to do is damage control. Don't be taken in by what Korach is saying.
Why is he so worried about the rest of the Shevet if he knows that Hashem's going to sort everything out?
Oh, that's a good question.
Why is he worried about them, but he knows how to deal with Korach?
Because Shevet Levi is a Shevet which is different from all the other tribes.
Yeah, okay.
Shevet Levi are the ones who represent that connection to God.
So
And again, that's why they were elevated, which means that if it's another tribe, so of course it's something terrible, but the repercussions, the spiritual repercussions are not so great. But if Shevet Levi are the ones that ended up being yanked along after Korach, the spiritual repercussions are going to be absolutely enormous, because they are the spiritual mentors of the Jewish people.
Moshe's worried. It's
Yeah.
It's not often where he says, haven't you got enough?
We don't see this for sure. 100%. Right? Under normal circumstances, Moshe, Moshe doesn't react like that normally.
Mm-hmm.
Moshe's reaction normally is, here, you did something wrong, you'll get punished, right? Or you did something right, and you'll get rewarded. And now look at Moshe Rabbeinu again. Who is this Moshe Rabbeinu? Who is this fellow? He is, like the Rambam says, there never was anybody like Moshe. There never will be anybody like Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu is something absolutely extraordinary. He's unique in a way that we can't even begin to imagine. He is the greatest leader that the Jewish people ever had.
The greatest prophet.
The greatest. You know what the Rambam says? That we only call Moshe Rabbeinu a prophet because we don't have any other way to describe him. He's like a super deluxe prophet. He speaks directly to God. God speaks out of his throat. We're not talking about a regular right, a visionary, a seer. It's interesting. You see the difference in the words. The prophets, invariably, when the prophets begin their prophecies, they say Ko Amar Hashem. Ko Amar Hashem means in ancient English, thus saith Hashem, right? What does Ko? Ko means like this. Not exactly, but like this. Ko Amar Hashem means that the prophet has been given a vision or has received some kind of a message, and now they've got to interpret it and give it over. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't speak in a language of Ko Amar Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu speaks in a language of Zeh Hadavar.
Talks to the governor directly.
This is the word, right? Zeh Hadavar. You can't, like the sages say, the word Zeh is something you can point at. It's so real. Zeh HaSefer, right? Zeh. When Moshe speaks, he speaks in the language of Zeh Hadavar, which means that Moshe is something else altogether. He's the greatest person ever in Jewish history. And look what he does. Vayishlach Moshe lekol Dasan v'Aviram b'nei Eliyav. Do you remember there were two other people involved in this fight over here? Dasan, there was Korach, and Datan v'Aviram. And Moshe calls for them, tells them to come. He wants to try to get them to realize that they're making a mistake over here. Vayomer lo na'aleh, and they say, no, we're not coming up. So it says in the sages say, the Medrash, it says like this: they didn't realize, but they were really speaking. They were speaking the real truth. They really were. Lo na'aleh means that you're not going to go up into the spiritual realms. They don't even realize what they're saying. They say, Moshe calls them and they say, we're not coming. Hama'at ki ilisanu me'eretz zavas chalav udvash lamisenu b'midbar. Listen to what they say. It's unbelievable, these words. Dasan v'Aviram, they sent back a message to Moshe. It's not enough that you took us out of a land flowing with milk and honey, right? Which land are they talking about? Egypt. It's not enough you took us out of a land flowing with milk and honey, but you brought us here to die in the desert. Unbelievable, right? I mean, is that not the very height of hubris, to take the description of the land of Israel, a land flowing with milk and honey, and use that to describe Egypt, where they were enslaved for 210 years?
It's not like a bunch of ingrates.
One way of describing it, for sure, right? And then he says, Gam tistarer aleinu, gam histarer. What are you going to do? It's almost the same like this. You brought us into the desert, and now you can't get us into the land of Israel because we're not strong enough. So what, you're going to rule over us over here in the desert? That's what you think. Right? Tistarer aleinu gam histarer. That's what's going to be with you. That's what you think. Af loy el eretz zavas chalav udvash hevisanu. It's not enough that you didn't bring us to the land flowing of milk and honey. You hear the contradictions over here? One moment ago, the previous sentence, they say that Egypt is a land flowing with milk and honey. And then that's to knock home one point, right? You took us out of a land flowing with milk and honey, and you didn't even bring us to the land flowing with milk and honey. It's a chutzpah, it's unbelievable, right?
It was really, really chutzpah.
For sure, right? Latiten lanu nachlas sadeh v'charem. Where are the fields? Where are the vineyards? Even if you gouge out the eyes, we're not going up.
Who's those men?
Huh?
Why does it say those men in the English?
Why does it say those men? Who's it talking about? It's talking about themselves, but they don't want to say it straight out. It's an interesting kind of a loshon, an interesting kind of a language which is used in the Gemara actually quite often. That when the rabbis want to use something which is somewhat critical about the Jewish people, so they'll use it they'll do it in a kind of an offset way. Yeah, they won't say that the Jewish people are no good, but they'll say, that the haters of the Jewish people are no good, and that you're supposed to learn from that they're really talking about the Jewish people. So over here, that what you say, even if you poke out our eyes, we're not going to go. Now, what does it mean to poke out our eyes? So if you see Rabbi scroll down here at the bottom, he cites the Sforno. The Sforno's got a very, very, very important idea over here, that even if, the Sforno's saying that, what do you think, that you can blind us to your mistakes? You hear what they're saying? It's most unbelievable chutzpah. They're saying like this to Moshe Rabbeinu. What do you think? You can pull a fast one over us? But we know that you've made a mistake, and we know you've made lots of mistakes, and you're doing your best to wriggle out of it now, right? What do you think? We don't see them. We don't see your mistakes. What are you going to? You're going to poke out our eyes, and if you poke out our eyes, then we can't see your mistakes anymore. We see your mistakes plenty good. You hear what they're saying? It's the most incredible thing. Yeah, listen, it's unlimited chutzpah. Listen to this though. Where did it come from? Why are they not going into the land of Israel?
Because they're undoing.
Which means they came to Moshe, not doesn't Bavirim themselves, everybody came to Moshe and said, we want to send in spies. Moshe Rabbeinu is not very happy about the idea, but he says, okay, we'll do it. And in they go. Now whose fault is it? Moshe Rabbeinu's, right? You hear what they're doing? It's unbelievable. You know what's really the most disturbing part of this whole story?
What?
Is that we do this all the time, don't we? We do it to ourselves the whole time. We really do. We will talk ourselves out of being responsible for whatever we've done, and we'll push it on to somebody else. You're carrying something, you take too much to carry and you drop it, and then you turn around to the person and you say, why did you let me take all of this stuff? Yeah. How many times, we do it all the time, no? So when we read it over here inside of the Chumash, we think to ourselves, wow, these guys are really something. How could they possibly imagine that what they're doing is acceptable? But Lamaisa, in truth, there's so many lessons over here for ourselves to learn, right? So Moshe was very upset. Listen to what he says. He says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu like this: when the offering is brought for the whole of the Jewish people every day, don't take their part of the offering. Now the offering is one animal. It was brought by the Kohen Gadol. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that when this whole thing is offered up, I want you to leave behind a little bit. Right? Why? Because I want you to prove that these people, they've detached themselves from the Jewish nation. It's not conceivable that they're a part of the Jewish people if this is what they're saying. And then he says like this, Lo chamor echad mehem nasasiv lo heroisies echad mehem. When he was put into a leadership position, Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't put into a leadership position by desire. It was placed upon him by God, right? Do you remember the story? He had to get himself down to Egypt, right? How did he get down to Egypt? He had a whole bunch of donkeys that he had to take with him in order to bring his wife and his family, yeah? So the emes is like this, the sages say like this, when you get given a job and it's not in the place that you live in, so normally it comes with relocation expenses, right? I mean, when you're on a certain level, right? Managerial positions. I had a friend whose father-in-law was moved from, he was in a very high position in a very big company in London, and he was moved to Australia. And he said that the relocation expense, like the budget he had for relocating was so enormous, he didn't know what to do with it all. Which means he did everything, just fine, and they traveled and they brought everything across and they moved the home and everything, and it was fantastic. He said they offered him so much money just to sweeten the deal. He said he couldn't spend it all on the relocation. I mean, don't worry, he found other things to spend it on. It's fine, right? But Yehipshad, Moshe Rabbeinu is absolutely justified when he gets down to Egypt to come to the Jewish people and say to them, listen, Rabbi Yisai, I want to tell you something. So far it's cost me, I don't know, $10,000 to bring my family from Midian down here to the land of Egypt, and I would very much appreciate it if you could give me my expenses. He never did it. Moshe Rabbeinu never takes a penny for leading the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu never takes a penny for all of the ticha, all of the trouble that he needs in order to be able to get down to Egypt, and then to send his wife and his children away again because it's too dangerous for them to stay there. He never asks a thing from the Jewish people. So look what he says. Lo chamor echad mehem nasati. I never took even a single donkey of theirs, the Jewish people's. V'lo heroisi et echad mehem, and I never did anything wrong to anybody.
He's really upset. This doesn't sound like Moshe.
Right?
Really cheap off.
He's reached a point where, you know what, I think even Moshe is completely taken aback at the extent of what's going on over here.
Well, the Parshat is a little bit, I'm just looking at translation.
Personally,
that distressed Moses greatly, and he said to Hashem, do not turn off their gift offering.
Right.
What he's telling Hashem what to do.
Yeah, we're going to see he's going to do more than that. He's also going to tell Hashem in a certain way how to punish all the people, how to punish them as well. So what's the pshat? Pshat is like this. There are two things going on over here. There is the affront to God, and there's the affront to Moshe as well. And under normal circumstances, you should know that under normal circumstances, what happens? Normally, Moshe gets upset with the Jewish people only when they do the wrong thing to God. This is a unique moment. It really is. When Moshe Rabbeinu is upset for himself, he's upset that they're casting aspersions on his own honesty, right? So at this point, Moshe Rabbeinu is turning around to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he's saying like this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to know that these people, as far as I am concerned, these people are not a part of the Jewish nation, and I want you to show everybody that that's so. Normally, Moshe Rabbeinu leaves it up to God. Whatever God feels is the right thing to do, that's just fine. But this time, Moshe is saying, no, this is too much. So tomorrow what's going to happen? You and Korach and Aaron and the 250 followers, you're going to come in front of God. And they're going to come with these 250 pans. And you, Korach, and Aaron,
Yes, Rabbi.
and you're going to bring the ketores. ויעמדו פסח אוהל מועד ומשה ואהרון ויקל עליהם קורח את כל העדה על פסח אוהל מועד ויכבוד השם על כל העדה. And that's exactly what they did, right? So here, you asked a question towards the beginning, right?
Okay.
You want to know, these people, they know that only one of them is going to survive. They know that, right?
They still have his organs.
And they're still right now, they're still planning on doing it. So what's the idea? So there are two approaches which are taken by the Mefarshim, by the commentaries. The first one is the simplest one to understand. The first one is that it's true, they know only one person is going to come out of this alive, but they think that they're going to be that one.
They're so wrapped up in their own.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. They're so, as you say, they're so wrapped up in themselves, it doesn't occur to them. It's the most incredible insight into human nature. It's something extraordinary, it really is. You hear what's going on? I know Aaron is there, for goodness sakes. Why do you think that you're going to get chosen over Aaron? Of course I will.
Right here.
The Netziv, Rav Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, says something which is quite really something extraordinary, something very deep, which we're going to have to think about. In Mitzvah Hashem, we'll talk about it more tomorrow. But he says that these 250 followers of Korach, they were really tzaddikim, they were very righteous, and they wanted to have that spiritual connection with God, even if it meant giving up their lives in order to have it. Which means he says that the 250 people weren't really a part of the rebellion in the same way that Korach was. They just wanted to experience that closeness, and this was the only way they were going to be able to do it. And they knew that they would probably end up losing their lives by doing it, but they were prepared to do that anyway.
They might be tzaddikim for it, certainly. Wasn't
Oh,
it?
that's for sure. Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we'll see just by how much. Mitzvah Hashem, we'll stop over here.